Hello class. Today we're going to launch into Unit B. Now that we've completed Unit A, Unit B covers Chapter 1, Section 2 of the textbook, as well as Chapter 1, Section 3, as well as all of Chapter 3. So the ending of Chapter 1, we're skipping Chapter 2, and of course all of Chapter 3 will be included in this Unit B. Today we're going to follow along a brief lecture on Chapter 1, Section 2 on the Origins and Constitution. So if you'd like to follow along in your textbook, Chapter 1, Section 2, and if you printed out the outline for the PowerPoint. So let's begin today then by looking at how do we classify forms of government. We're going to ask basically three questions on classifying. Similar to the way you would classify, say, types of animals in a biology class, you would ask basic questions to help classify. Like, does it have a vertebrae? Yes or no? Is it warm or cold-blooded? Different questions to help you classify forms of government will also be asked. These three in particular, the first being, who gets to participate? If it's almost everybody, then we would click more towards democratic. If nobody gets to participate, or at least very few, then we would click on dictatorship. Now, of course, there's in between, so you have to make a judgment call on that where it's closest to as far as how many people in that particular nation state can participate in their government. The second question has to do with geographical distribution of the power. If all power is in one central city for the whole country, it's going to be more unitary. If power is spread not only in the federal government but also to the several states, as in the case of the United States, you would check a more federal system, where yes, there's a strong central government, but also the states have a lot to say as well. The third and final question we're going to look at is a relationship between the legislative and the executive branch. Do the people choose the executive leader directly, as in America? Then it would be a presidential system. We would check that box. If the legislature, whether it be the parliament or the Congress, if they get to pick the leaders, then it would be more of a parliamentary model. That's how we would classify that form of government. So we're going to get some practice doing that in a little bit, and the class activity that you're going to work on in the Google Classroom. So if we check more democratic, then more people obviously can participate. And the thing is we of course exist in what we call a democratic society, but not in what we would consider a true democracy. In a true democracy, everybody would have equal say on everything. Now we know that's practicality would be a problem, and it bypasses God's word, which says all authority comes from God and not the people. So it's okay that we get to participate in America because the founding fathers set it up as what's called a democratic republic. Well, what does that mean? We often just say democracy, but really it's a democratic republic where we as Americans get to participate by choosing leaders who then get their authority from God, which is a very important difference than a true democracy. The other extreme would be a dictatorship or an autocratic form of government where one, or an oligarchy where a few have all power with no say from anyone else. Now, what about unitary versus federal? We talked about that in the classifying question of where is power concentrated, one central city or spread throughout the whole country, different capitals, different power structures shared. There also could be a confederate form of government, which we tried at the beginning of our history. If you remember United States history class, we had the Articles of Confederation, which proved to be too weak, and the leaders got together and formed the new Constitution, which we still use today. So then the last question was the relationship between legislative and executive. So as you can see here, in the presidential relationship, the voters choose the legislators and the executors. The parliamentary relationship, the voters get to choose a legislator who then chooses the chief executive. So again, you would click presidential or parliamentary based on those questions. Here's a rundown of some countries and how you would classify them. You'd ask where is the power, the relationship, and then how many people get to participate. If hardly nobody, you would click dictatorship, as in the case of Cuba. So God has given each country its authority, the leaders. Some have usurped that authority and gone overboard with taking more authority to themselves than what the Bible gives. And others have gone the other direction and given up the authority that God has given to the leaders of a nation state to a broader assembly, such as the United Nations or the European Union. God condemns those leaders who were given power and become boastful and proud and are not responsible with the authority that's been given to them. And they, of course, as we know from the biblical principles you've been studying, are held accountable for those actions.